Call the meeting to order. Pledge, please.
Salute pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Clodfelter? Here. Ms. Nyworth? Here. Mr. Sherem?
Here.
Dr. Bridges?
Here.
Mr. Jester?
Here.
Colonel Curtis?
Here.
Okay, Dr. Deegan, you have lots of special guests tonight.
Yes, and I want to, again, if I didn't say before, thank you all for coming. I know we're just, this is one of the coolest nights of the year for us. It wraps up the year. We get to see, the students who've just really set the bar for excellence. And we also get your parents here, so that's cool. So again, if you weren't here for that part, when we have everybody up here, Mr. Owens and the principals will pause as long as they need to for everybody to take pictures. Just get right in front of us and block the view. It's what we want you to do. So what we're going to do, I'm going to introduce Mr. Owens, and he's going to take over from there. Mr. Rick Owens is our executive director of secondary schools, so he's kind of the boss of all the principals. Mr. Owens.
Thank you for coming. Good evening. Recognize our National Merit Scholar finalists, and we have 3 of those. National Merit Commended Scholar, we have 1. National Hispanic Scholar, and we have 3. Academic All-State, we have 2 of those. And Outstanding Performance on the ACT 30 or higher, and we have 27 of those. Wow. To give you an idea of how difficult the ACT which is 20.7, and the district average is 21.2. So it's an outstanding accomplishment. And also to give you an idea of how competitive our national scholarship is, let me give you a brief overview. Over 1.6 million students in more than 22 high schools entered the competition. Only 16,000 of the 1.6 million were selected as semifinalists. That's less than 1% of all the seniors in the United States. Some semifinalists are selected from the 16,000 as commended scholars and receive letters of commendation and are candidates for special scholarships. And we have 1 in that category. By the conclusion of the competition, there are 7,500 finalists in the United States that are selected, and we have 3 of those. Our National Hispanic Recognition Program was established in 1983. It is a college board program that recognizes the academic achievements of Hispanic high school students and identifies them for post-secondary institutions. Approximately 4,800 of the highest scoring students from an initial pool of greater than 150,000 are recognized as scholars or honorable mention finalists, and we have 3 of those that qualified. The Academic All-State is also highly competitive in Oklahoma, and only 100 students are selected for this honor in the state, and we have 2 of those scholars. So now it's time to meet these outstanding students and their principals. We'll present the awards to them. We're going to do it by alpha, so we're going to start with Eisenhower, then Lawton High, and then MacArthur. So Eisenhower, Ms. Oates.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Now, if you are an Eisenhower student and I haven't laid my eyes on you yet, come up here. Come up here, because I don't know who's... Come right up here. There you go. These are students who ask permission to move. They're not generally in the principal's office, so I might not know their names exactly. Thank you so much. Just to give you a little bit of a recap about Eisenhower High School, we have 11 students who have scored an ACT score of 30 or higher. in our building. I have 2 National Merit finalists that are here tonight, and one National Hispanic Achievement Award who is here tonight. And I also have an academic all-stater. All of these kids at, I don't see her yet here, she might come in a little bit later, from Eisenhower. We're very proud of all of them. This is a very busy week. This is senior week for all of our kids, probably in all of our high schools. And so I want to be sure that I get all of these right. Ashley Spriggs has scored an outstanding performance of an ACT of a score of 30 or higher. What? Kate, gotcha. Hang on. I was trying to find them in this. And Dylan. And Blaze, I'm looking for yours. These are out of order. There you go. And Blaze Manuel, I'm finding him, has scored an ACT of 30 or higher on his ACT. 30 or higher. Okay, I'm looking for yours. Hang on. And Katie, right? Katie? See? That's why they're never in trouble, so I don't know their names. Come here. Cameron? Cameron? Oh, Hannah. Good grief, Hannah. And Hannah Beck for outstanding performance on the ACT of 30 or higher. And then Dylan Price. Dylan scored an outstanding performance of 30 or higher on his ACT, but he also is a National Merit finalist. And Itzel Bernier has an outstanding performance of a 30 or higher on her ACT. She is a National Merit finalist and a National Hispanic Achievement Award winner. Are there any other Eisenhower students here that did not pop up? All right, thank you so much, and thank you for giving these kids the opportunity to do what they do. Very proud of them. Hold those up so you can get people.
We'll let everybody go after all 3 high schools.
Okay.
Hello, I am Dr. DeLoach, and I am the head principal at Lawton High School. Now, we're going to follow Eisenhower for once. All of my students, please come and stand over here. Now, I have the certificates for 5 students. But I just want to let you know I'm very proud of the students that I have. Right now at Lawton High, we have 365 students in this graduating class standing here with me, and some of them aren't here today. I have 5 students who have scored above 30 on their ACT test. I have a National Hispanic Scholar as well as an academic all-state student. Now, I'm also going to have to plug our great achievements for this year. We've also been rated 18th in the state of Oklahoma by U.S. Newsweek. Okay, so I got to plug that. And I know that these are the types of students who have gotten us there. Okay. So I'd like to begin with Jackson Cousart, outstanding performance of ACT of 30 or higher on the ACT. Let me step over here. Okay. Wonderful. Now, I do not see Nicole Kirby. I actually had her at Central Middle School, but she has an outstanding performance on ACT with a 30 or higher as well. Okay. Bonnie McKernan. Okay. Academic All-State, outstanding performance on ACT 30 or higher. And it's hard for me to catch up with her because she has so many activities. Aaron Mendelson, National Hispanic Scholar, outstanding performance of ACT of 30 or higher. Now, Sean Talbert is also on here, outstanding ACT of 30 or higher. He's also a Hubish winner and Mr. LHS and a whole bunch of other things. But please give him another round of applause. Yeah, and we're finished.
This for me. I may need that at some point. I'm Rod Elam, and I'm the principal from MacArthur High School. I guess so I won't be different. I'll ask all the MacArthur students to come right over here and line up. I'm going to name everybody on the list nonetheless. Careful, Ben. Very proud of these young people, just as I was of all our young people, but these bring special recognition to us. The first one here is Benjamin Bowen, National Merit Scholarship Program finalist, outstanding performance on his ACT 30 or higher. Stand over there. Cecilia Brown, National Hispanic Scholar. Jason Fritz, outstanding performance on the ACT. Although he's not here, I'm going to mention Samuel Hilliard, National Merit Scholarship Program, Commended Scholar, and outstanding performance on the ACT. Nicholas Howard, same story. Outstanding performance on the ACT. Brittany Hutchinson, she's not here either. Outstanding performance on the ACTs. Samantha Price isn't with us either. She also had a 30 or higher on the ACT. Robert Rose, outstanding performance on the ACT. I might mention between Robert and Ben yesterday at the awards assembly, there was probably, I don't know, $4.5 million worth of scholarships offered to the two of them combined. Justin Santos, outstanding performance on the ACT. Ashley Urbanski, outstanding performance on the ACT. Callista Young, outstanding performance on the ACT. Sarah Zuckerman, outstanding performance on the ACT. Okay, go sit down.
No, I'm good. I was just going to ask you, these are the best kids. Give them another round, please. And parents, when we go outside, there's refreshments and pictures all out in the hallway.
Yeah.
Outside.
Yeah.
Right.
Before we let y'all go, I want to see if the board members have any
words of encouragement that you want to share with them, because we're just amazed, we're thankful y'all here. It's a sign of great teachers, but it's also a sign of unbelievable parents. Wouldn't you all agree? Wouldn't all the parents agree? Any board members have any thoughts that you'd like to share?
This is actually the largest group that have been recognized since I've been on the board, so that's impressive.
Very impressive. Keep up the great work.
All right, well, thank you all. You're welcome to stay, but there are cookies and refreshments out in the hallway.
You're welcome to stay.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Big group.
It's 30s. About 30.
That's impressive.
We decided the cookies out there would be better
That's probably good.
because of the crowd.
Thank you.
And Mr. Oh.
One student that came late was waiting out there in the mess. And we need to give him the same recognition that we gave the others.
Absolutely.
So I want to introduce to you Christopher Smith. And Christopher Smith has an outstanding performance on the ACT of a 30-year high.
Thank you, Chris.
And you know, the rest of them came after me, so they got to name their other kids, so I'm going to do the same, if you don't mind. Because, you know, we didn't know if we were supposed to do any of that. Katie Cole has an outstanding performance on the ACT of 30 or higher. Cameron Duncan has an outstanding performance on the ACT of 30 or higher. Thank you. Jennifer King has an outstanding performance on the ACT of 30 or higher. Alyssa Pletcher has an outstanding performance on the ACT of 30 or higher. And Faith Dennis is one of our Oklahoma All-Staters. There are only 100 chosen in the state, and I believe one is from Lawton High, and Faith is our student from Eisenhower, so they get to go to Tulsa this summer to represent us. So thank you for letting me do that.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Departmental reports.
Yes. Just making a note there. Under departmental reports, under 5A, we just have the normal updates. If the board doesn't have any questions, I'll move on pretty quickly from there. Under 5A, we just have the printed updates that the board received. If we don't have any questions there, we'll go on to item 5B. We have an architect report, Corey Miller. Corey is going to give us several updates. First on Ron Stevens Stadium renovation. They're wrapping up the Eisenhower windows. I think there's one issue in here about that we've got, and they're working on 3 roof projects as well for us. Tomlinson, Lawton High, and Carriage Hills, I believe. But, and Corey, by the way, has also been helping us for the last 2 years regarding monitoring Eisenhower Middle School.
So what can we ask him if we have questions about those?
He's here. I brought some copies of the report from Ron Stevens. There's a copy of the report. And I've also brought some copies of my summary of the update for the other projects that are going on. This will come after the Ron Stevens report. I'm going to go ahead and pass these out. So Dr. Deegan, members of the board, we appreciate y'all inviting us here to share some reports with you tonight. We'll be talking about the Ron Stevens project first, and then we'll get on to the other projects that we have going on throughout the district. My name's Corey Miller. I'm a project architect at AIP in Norman. I've also brought with me tonight Matt Graves, principal at the firm, and we just appreciate your time here tonight. So the initial study that we've done so far for Ron Stevens, we've looked at repairing some of the damage that is apparent on the south wall, but when we came up with a price to do that, it was pretty significant, the cost of the repairs. And so we looked at, what does that look like in respective of what the rest of the facility needs. So we've gone through an initial investigation that provides some rough order of magnitude pricing and associated projects that we'd recommend. These are very preliminary numbers, very preliminary investigation, but it's something that'll give us an idea of what we think work needs to be done going forward that would lead to a further feasibility study of the structural issues as well as just programmatic things that the facility would need for being a fully functioning stadium. The things that we'll discuss tonight are the structural engineer's initial opinion and most importantly his recommendation or his opinion of the of any imminent dangers that persist and identification of priority projects that we recommend. So first and foremost, the structural engineer that we brought down to view the facility is seeing no imminent dangers, but he does recommend an annual, at least periodic structural investigation just to make sure that the facility doesn't continue to deteriorate further. There are some issues with flooding that we'll get into that are probably going to continue to deteriorate those masonry walls, and we just want to keep an eye on that. For that portion of the repairs, we're identifying somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 worth of work just to keep the masonry in good condition, keep it from deteriorating further, repair some of the damage that has been done, some of the stones that have been lost, also to just correct some of the cracks that are throughout the mortar. Some of those examples are shown here. We've got a picture from the east side, one of the photos from down in one of the locker rooms, and then of course most of the archways have some cracks within them. Some of the other masonry repairs included in that same figure, replacing the mortar caps. These are important to keep water from migrating down into the walls, and of course during the wintertime when it freezes, that expansion is going to continue to pop that mortar. And we do have some structural concern with this one column in one of the dugouts. We're showing some rebar, so usually by the time it gets to that point, we do recommend something be done about that. Replacement of the bleachers. Some of the concrete, for this structure, as old as it is, it's in pretty good shape, but it's just nearing the end of its life. It's starting to spall on top. This photo on the right shows some examples of that. And there's starting to be some spall at the joints where those rest on the bearing walls. We think something should be done to at least cover those. We've looked into complete replacement of the concrete, taking those bleachers off the supporting walls and replacing them with new concrete bleacher risers. The problem we see with that is that the companies that usually make those precast members, they like to do the whole structure, and we may have difficulty convincing them to work with an existing structure and just put their parts on top of it. The figure that we've got quoted here is to do an overlay of a topping slab, basically, that's going to encapsulate this and keep it from deteriorating further. And we've got about $750,000 designated for that. Before we move on, just one more thing to add about bleacher replacement. We've done a measure of the seating width. Current code attributes about 18 inches wide per person when you count for the occupancy. So we're looking at a seating count of 4,330 people. Under current code, the aisleway, the exit stairs aren't quite wide enough. So if we did come in and did some concrete work, that'd be a good opportunity to increase the width of those that could be added during that time.
Before you go on, you said replace the concrete bleacher risers. I know some of these existing, they put the aluminum structures on top of these. Did you, is that in any way part of what you can say that, was that indicated as a cost as well? Did you look into that?
We did, and we've got a case study following this initial part of the
Okay,
report.
all right, I'm jumping ahead of you, okay.
Bear with me. One of the most significant issues that we're seeing is that the structure itself is not only in a flood zone, but in a floodway. Some of the initial reports that we got from maintenance is that there's a significant amount of runoff coming down Dearborn. It rounds that corner at the northeast and even ruts out under the walls at times. It'll get into the facility, flood the field, it'll hold water. And of course, I can't remember the name of the road there at the east, but it turns into a river. And, we're not seeing signs of settlement per se, but we're seeing signs of movement. And we think that when those soils get saturated, they're moving around, cracking that mortar, and contributing to the problems we're seeing in the masonry. The fix that we're eyeing for that is to improve that drainage canal. And really, rough estimate, we think it needs to be about 3 times as wide as it is. There is some some pedestrian and vehicular, access across there. So we'd recommend probably in a couple spots using the box culverts to form bridges, basically. But we're associating about $1 million worth of work to that.
And that's just along our structure, right?
Yes, we'd probably try to take a regional approach because it's probably going to extend further south than that.
Yeah, because the theater floods every time it rains.
Yeah.
It's horrible. And,
And probably back into the neighborhoods up north, too.
Yeah. And the city's known for a long time that it's their drainage ditch that's doing that.
Correct. So some of the other numbers, just to fill in information of how we came upon these, starting with the masonry, the concrete bleachers, then we go to the public restroom renovations. So we took that occupancy count and followed the current plumbing code to determine a number of fixtures that would be needed and assigned approximately 5% of those to be ADA accessible. And we're coming up with a need of 2,550 square feet of renovated restroom space. And so by the time that we expand those restrooms, deeper under the bleachers to take advantage of the plumbing that's there, but expand it, and then probably redo the domestic water and sanitary sewer service to the facility, we're looking at about $500,000 there. The next one down, moisture protection. We do have water that migrates through the wall and causes problems in the interior spaces of the restrooms, the conditioned spaces. We think that we can find a coating to protect it from the inside, try to keep that from just reaching those interior finished spaces for about $20,000. The locker room restroom renovations, this is that standalone facility at the north. It's got existing restrooms in it, but they're not ADA accessible. The showers are not ADA accessible. And so we're assigning about $100,000 to renovating those to be accessible as well. We talked about the drainage canal and then parking and sidewalks. Taking the occupancy count and looking at what the city has to offer with zoning, we think that we need about 1,083 parking stalls. Now, of course, we're not going to fit all of those here. With it being an existing facility, the city would probably work with us on that. But we use that number to determine how many ADA stalls we think we would be required under federal law to have. And that comes out to 23. We found some areas on the north end of the football field within the walls, and then along the east side against the wall on the outside that, drew the size of the parking stall and developed a paved surface based on that. Sidewalks to access the bleachers, and then some queuing areas in front of the concession stands. And that paving adds up to be about $90,000. These are very rough estimates. We did put a contingency on there as well. We don't know exactly where the design would lead us, but right now we're looking at a little over $3 million for these basic improvements. All right, while we were doing the study, took a little time to see a soccer game, and went to Taft Stadium in Oklahoma City. Now, I heard a rumor that they did all these improvements for $1 million, and when I walked in there, I was amazed and didn't believe it. So I did a little more research, and it turned out it was closer to $12 million. But they did a lot of great things there, and I wanted to show you the opportunities that exist. And we can talk about a comparison to this project, and maybe replacing the bleachers with aluminum grandstands. Yeah. So I've got some photos here. Is there an opportunity to easily dim the lights? Some of these are hard to see in the light. All right, so you can see as you approach that the old wall that supported the bleachers is still there. That's still their front piece. The perimeter wall is still intact, at least for a good portion of it. They've created some new entries that probably weren't original in different locations for that to work with the site and with access. Made them ADA accessible. There's a lot of grade change in this facility, so there's probably a lot of dirt work that ours might not have. But you'll see those in the photos. From the inside, you can tell that they pretty much gutted the thing. They've got aluminum grandstands now to seat a little over 7,000 people, so a good bit larger than our structure. They've done that to both, home and away sides. They've got bleacher seating as well as chairback seating. They've got grandstands, so a little more extravagant than what we'd probably recommend doing right away here. They've built new structures to house their locker rooms, their concessions, their accessible restrooms. So all of those are standalone buildings. And this bottom picture, shows you better, what's left of the old raker beams that supported the bleacher risers. They've added to those to support that wall, but they've completely disassembled the old bleachers that were there. So a similar scope comparison to, what could we do here? If our intent was to save the walls, the perimeter walls that really give the character in this neighborhood, and do similar things on the inside, what would a price tag start to look like? And, we probably got $500,000 in demo. We still have about $300,000 in masonry repair to the outside wall because, those cracks are there, and it's the same thing that we looked at with the other pricing. We did throw in $800,000 for a turf field because that's something that they did in the Taft renovation. We've got $1.5 million for new grandstand seating. Now, keep in mind this is half the size that Taft was, but we think for our seating level around 4,000 seats, that's where we'd be. That doesn't include any grandstands or anything, or press boxes, things like that. We would do new restroom buildings instead of trying to build under the bleachers. For $600,000, we'd recommend the same thing for the concessions and the locker room buildings. Start with a new building there for $220,000 and $180,000, and then the drainage canal work is still upon us because the site is still the same, and pretty much the same thing with the parking. So with all this, a similar project would be a little under $6 million. So, having similar results to what Taft was able to do, but, a good bit less than it took up there in Oklahoma City. But we did this just to try to put in perspective what that $3 million of basic renovations to the structure that you have now really looks like. If the intent is to keep the existing walls and keep this site, we think those minimum renovations for $3 million would go that far. To really improve it, modernize it, a little under $6 million. Now, do want to point out that with the drainage problems, it may be just as feasible to find another site if the land is available, and we think that a new stadium, same size, would probably run between $5 and $6 million.
That would only be 4,300,
A new one.
a new one, I mean, at the same.
The
number
seating
of
capacity?
seating
Yeah, that
about
price is based
4,000.
on that same seating.
Yeah, and I'm wondering where would we find 1,083 parking stalls on that property? No way.
Yeah, we probably have to work something out with the city.
Because,
We have to get
the
creative
theater's
there.
got a small parking area, and then
Right.
so you're talking about the park behind the theater?
Well,
Smack dab in the middle of.
for this site, yeah, I don't think there's a place to find that many in that area, but, you know, one of the things that TAPS is doing, they must have an arrangement where, you know, they've got a lot of on-street parking, and it turns into game day down there. Everyone's selling parking at their private yards
I
and
spent 6 years in
parking
that
lots
stadium in
and-
high school, and we parked everywhere.
Yes, yes.
It's a little bit larger because they also have a track around their football field, which you could not do in this situation at the way that Taft is, in the way compared to where we are at Ron Stevens.
Yeah, I think we're going to be a little bit tight. Now, I do think it would hold a soccer field, though.
You didn't have a press box included in that either.
No, those prices didn't include press boxes.
And they have one multi-tier with an elevator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was told that it was about, if there was right information, that facade that holds up that wall, that reinforcement cost them $750,000 just for that. And that's none of renovations, that's just keeping the old
Just the whole
Taft Stadium
place.
look on the outside, yes. that's-
Yeah.
Corey, are you familiar with the methodology that was used to raise the funds to renovate Taft Stadium?
I don't. I think it was a mix, though, of private investment and, you know, public funding as well.
And public, does that belong to the city of Oklahoma City, do you know, Taft Stadium?
I think it belongs to the school system.
School system, okay.
I mean, we've played there for 50, 60 years.
It might have had some type of MAPS funding, but
I think it
don't
got
quote me on that
got
one.
maps money. I think.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
did.
Are there any other questions on the Ron Stevens Stadium?
Do you have any alternative ideas as far as getting, I guess my question is, if we were to repair the wall, if we were able to find a way to repair the wall, is the opinion of the engineers that we have to do something about the drainage canal in order for that to really have a lasting impact?
Yes, we haven't studied the frequency of the flooding down there, but it seems to be pretty regular, and I believe it's going to quickly deteriorate any improvements down there.
And of that 300 to 400,000, we're talking about a lot of other areas that are being affected right now besides the one that's very visible, which is our large hole.
Correct. You know, in a further study, we'd identify exactly what cracks we want filled, what stones we want replaced. This is a very rough estimate at this point, but correct, that's for the entire facility.
Now, the proposed design that we've seen for the repair of that south wall includes a large gate, and I understand that part of the rationale for that is that can give some support that will help with some of the leaning of the wall and some of the problems that have been created as that has continued to deteriorate. Can you speak on that a little bit more?
Yeah, we would be able to use the sides of that as pilasters to support that wall instead of having a break there. Now, we would probably recommend coming back with similar buttresses to what's there supporting it now. You know, I think they're every 32 feet, but that would give us a better anchor right there in the center as well.
And then also, too, you kind of went through in this report the advantages and disadvantages of getting that as a historic overlay district, and then also National Historic. Would you speak to that? The National Registry, yeah.
Right. You know, it seems that the intent of having that as a historic overlay district is to help with a designation that would promote fundraising you know. We think that the National Historic Registry is probably a better way to do that. The city overlay district does come along with review authority that the National Registry does not, unless you are going specifically for funding that is tied to federal dollars. The report kind of goes into the specifics of that, but that's the main difference.
In the National Registry, there's some opportunities possibly for some grants.
There are grants available, and when you have that designation, yeah, it puts you in the running for that. And there's also opportunity for some alternatives to building code and life safety requirements, having that designation on the national level.
So the International Building Code,
Yes, sir.
they were specifically stated for National Registry.
Correct.
Okay. And how difficult do you think it is to get to that National Registry or get that done?
There's an application process. It starts at the state. It requires a narrative that has already been developed as part of the investigation of doing the city overlay district. I've read it. I think it's strong. There's a lot of history, not only architecturally, but in the community and, you know, athletic figures that are prominent. And yeah, I think you've got a good case there. The structure being a WPA structure, there's not a whole lot left, and they would definitely encourage its, you know, being kept up. All right.
Thank you.
I also wanted to update the board on our progress of current projects. Eisenhower High School's window replacement. We have substantial completion on the entire project at this point. Just to make sure that the board understands, there will be another document coming before you called substantial completion, and it's not just a duplicate. We accepted the majority of the project in January. The translucent window systems were not ready at that time, and so we accepted those at the beginning of May, and so you'll be seeing a separate document on those. We did develop a punch list of items to be completed on the entire building back in January, and about 95% of that is complete, so they're getting very close. Woodland Hills Elementary, you should be seeing a final application for payment here to approve very shortly. Everything, all the work's done at that facility. The Media Center generator replacement, they achieved substantial completion beginning of February, and they've worked through about 95% of their punch list items as well. The bus wash, the city has come through for the plumbing inspections on the actual oil water separator that's below ground. They've passed that, and we're able to cover it up, and they actually poured concrete back for the slab today. So that one will be finishing up very soon. They still need to do the mechanical work for the ventilation, and I believe they've got some parts on order for that. I did want to brief the board that there will be a change order request being sent. One thing that came up during construction, we discovered that just north of that enclosed bay, there was an exterior wash bay at one point, and that actually tied directly to our oil water separator. Because it's an exterior facility and it's not covered, the city will not allow that to be used and tied into the sanitary sewer. They don't want all the rainwater overflowing the sanitary sewer. So at one point that was capped, and it's not been used for a long time. However, the slab slopes and holds water there. And so we're recommending that we take a drain out to the surface of the parking lot just to keep that from holding water after rainstorms. And the price that we had from the contractor is $6,200. The original contract sum was $59,900, and that would take the new contract sum to $66,100. That has not been sent for the agenda yet, but I would like to get it on pretty soon so we can get them wrapped up. Carriage Hills, Tomlinson, and Lawton High School. The re-roofs are progressing great. We've got our site set on June 1st as our advertisement to bid, and we're making progress and should have no problem hitting that. We're also scanning in existing as-built drawings of all the facilities that are here at the district on record, and we're about a third of the way through that massive drawings right now. So we will continue with that and plan on delivering probably 3 to 4 DVDs worth of drawings. You have a lot of facilities. We hope to have them all on one disc, but I don't think that's going to happen. Are there any questions on any current projects?
I don't know if my questions need to be asked now when we get ready to pull something. I have a question that, I don't know if you want Mr. Smith and Mr. Ledford to answer, or if you want to answer, but I know we've asked you to do some preliminary looks at some HVAC, and I think most of those have been given to you already, correct?
I don't believe we're under contract for them.
No, we're not under contract. We
But
just,
we have been looking at them. Some of them we've done in the past, and, you know, they'll require a code update because it's been a while.
Okay.
But we do have plans to finish those quickly. We've
What's
developed,
quickly?
we've developed a schedule, and
It's next.
I'll
The schedule is next.
I'll let
okay.
Mr. Smith
That's why I said, I don't know
continue.
if I need
But
to ask you or wait for,
yeah, we've got about
Okay.
90 days of, you know, design and bid time, and then we've associated, based on similar projects that we've done here in the district, what a construction timeline might look like, and
Okay.
I'll let Mr. Smith take over from here.
okay,
Do
thank
we want
you.
to finish, hold it before Mr. Smith? Mr. Lodfelder, did you have a question?
I think it's come off the agenda, you know, the,
It's on the consent agenda.
It's on the consent agenda.
The question she has.
Okay.
yeah, so, let's get that.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Good evening, Kyle Smith, Executive Director of Operations. We have looked at some projects from the 2004 bond issue that were not completed. If you look, we've kind of given you a 2-page report. The front page kind of goes in detail about each one of these projects, and in the back of it, you'll see a bar graph, a colored bar graph that we've tried to put together with Corey's help and Mr. Ledford's help of looking at these projects and how long in the past it's taken us to get similar projects done. You'll notice that on the bar graph in the back, it does list in green a 90-day period that we usually come up against, that's with the design, the bid, and the signing of the contract. And then the actual construction time, take, for example, Edison's roof, all these contracts usually will take about 90 days to design, bid, and sign the contract with the construction company. And then for Edison, in the yellow, it lists the construction time of 120 days for the roof at Edison Elementary School, which is up to substantial completion. And so we've kind of put this all in a graph for you to see basically how long it will take us to complete those projects. And of course, the bigger project like Mac Middle School, you know, of course, that's going to take quite a while. We anticipate, you know, upwards of 490 days. We're still investigating because we have not done any renovations on any cafeterias as recent. You know, Lawton High, Eisenhower, both were new structures. And so I have Steve Dyer, our child nutrition director, going through MacArthur High School, looking at what renovations we need in the kitchen. You know, basically renovations to me tell, you know, we're going to do the cosmetic things, paint, floor, ceiling tile, replace the windows. If we're going to redesign the serving line, redo the kitchen, those are things that we're looking at right now to try to get an idea about price and time period for that. So we'll get back with you on MacArthur High School cafeteria specifically. But the rest of the projects there, Corey, Kent, think that for the most part we're pretty accurate with the bid process and then the construction time for each one of those projects. Also, having worked with AIP in the past, they know specifically all our specs for roofs, all our specs for HVAC. They completed MacArthur Middle School roof. They completed Whittier HVAC within the past, you know, year and a half. And so, you know, they would be able to get up to speed pretty quick on getting these projects spec'd out and getting them bid if we choose to move forward with that at any time in the near future. Any questions?
So when I'm looking at the design schedule, it appears that if we were to go ahead and hire AIP for these designs, that they could have the rest of the projects that we have left to be designed within 4 weeks. Is that right?
Well, it's probably going to take us longer than that. Like I said, that's why we have the 90 days in there. It could take us 6 to 8 weeks for the design. It could take us 21 days for the bid, and then it could take us 3 to 4 weeks for signing the contract and getting all the information back from the contractor that won the bid. We think we can get all that done within 90 days on that.
The bids as well.
Yes. Yeah, we
All
think.
at the same time? I mean,
They think they can do it concurrently, yes, so we can get all those started, and Matt Graves, the principal with AIP, and I and Corey and Kent met before this board meeting, just go over these things again to make sure that they knew that if we move forward, we wanted to move forward on all of these, and they assure us that they can do that. And like I said, the one outlier is going to be the Mac High School cafeteria, and we're still looking at what we need to do there. I know we've discussed $350,000 maybe for renovations of that. How far does that go? We're still looking into what the needs are for that building beyond the cosmetic things that we'd normally do to refurbish a building. So we'll get back with you on some numbers for that. Question?
Do you see any need to do a RFQ for architects at this point?
At this point, I would not see any need to do an RFQ. As I spoke to you last summer, I think having spoken to other districts, particularly Edmond, they do RFQs on large building projects like building new schools. If we move forward with building an Eisenhower Middle School, definitely we could look at doing an RFQ for that kind of project, because we're looking at, roughly $30 million or more. But for these projects, if we wanted to move quickly, AIP is our in-house architect, and they're able to move forward with all these projects. They know our specs. If we're going to move quickly, they're the people we need to use.
So I feel like they have enough resources to adequately man this and this all at one time.
Matt, I asked him that very same question because I knew that would come up, and Mr. Groves said, "Do you want to come up, Matt, and say?" Matt is the main man, so he's the one that can see that this can get done.
The main question we keep hearing is if the board were to pull the trigger on all these simultaneously, would we be able to be simultaneously doing all these projects at the same time?
Yes, and that question gives me an opportunity to brag on our staff. Corey and Ben Smith each led major projects this last couple of years. Tuttle and Norman North addition renovation. Tuttle bond issue was $30 million plus, and our project at Norman North was $18 million. Originally 19, we were able to whittle it down, but both those projects and a few others ran concurrent. So we do have the staff, and we got a great head start. So.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, you're welcome to stay, Corey, but I think there might be some cookies left over for you out there. Item 5D is Ms. Barbara Ellis and proposed revisions 2017-18 LPS school calendar.
I think this is again where we all chuckle just a little bit, but this is only number 2. I have a revision to the calendar for 2017-18, and I've given you information on the rationale. But for the public, it simply includes the fact that AP examinations are usually given during the first 2 full weeks in May. And as a result, our calendar overlapped a partial week that could not be included in that particular schedule. So a proposal came to us from David Baer and Eisenhower High School indicating that in order to accommodate the students' needs, that we would like to have an addendum to the calendar. So I've presented to you a calendar that has been redrafted and has been vetted through both the committee that made the proposal, David Baer and the Eisenhower staff, as well as through a committee with PPDC, and a group of interested teachers and administrators who attended a meeting on April the 28th and agreed that this calendar proposal would be best for the district. The difference here and the first calendar is that it did not get vetted through the entire district prior to, but as I said, this is simply because of the proposal. What I've done is I've taken the first week of school, pushed back 2 days from a start date of the 7th for professional development of August to the 9th of August, which gives us the first 2 days. And then I've looked at the first week in January, which is the last of our winter break, and pushed back another day so that we will come back for professional development on the 5th of January. And then the last is pushed back a 4th day on Easter weekend for that Monday. Having looked at that proposal, that is a very high absentee day for both teachers and for students. And so I pushed back the 4th day, and that gives us the closing date of May the 24th rather than May the 16th. Okay? Do you have any questions?
No, but I appreciate you. I know it was mentioned to me by Mr. Baer, and I told him to get in contact with you, and you all really got after it, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Having no questions, thank you.
Yes.
I'll move for approval. Patty?
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Claude Felter?
Yes.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Mr. Sharon?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Chester?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm leaving stuff out, so.
Ms. Hastings, item 5E, proposed salary schedule for hourly journeyman employees.
Good evening, Board. The last board meeting, we had went through the 10 steps for building a salary structure, and so that kind of laid the groundwork for us to bring this to you tonight. What you have before you is a report where we've actually followed this 10 steps in building. We reviewed our current compensation philosophy. Our current starting pay for a journeyman is right at $21,000, $21,400. We gathered market data. We used Middale Independent School District, Moore Independent School District, Stillwater Independent School District, and then Pay Scale Human Capital, their Oklahoma Metro figures to figure out what journeymans were making in the state. We've posted these jobs a couple of years ago and could find no one interested in applying at our current rates. Right now, they range. Each of our journeymen, depending on the area that they work in, they may start at a grade 4, a grade 5, and a grade 7. Our regular custodians start at a grade 3. We're asking for skilled labor for a grade 4. So their starting wage is somewhere between $9.73 an hour and $10.48 an hour. Once we received the information on the other school districts and human pay capital, Pay Scale Human Capital, we looked at identifying our benchmark jobs of what other jobs that are common in our district that we could benchmark where we were on those. So we used a mechanic, which would be skilled computer tech, skilled secretary that has certain things that have to be present, typing tests, that sort of thing, and looked at the state average for Pay Scale Capital and also the Oklahoma State Department of Education for those positions as well. We saw that our calculation of the compa ratio of what our comparability ratio in those jobs and what the comparability ratio for the journeyman job is. You can see there that the mechanics, that it's 0.05% above. The computer tech, we're right on target with that. The secretary is a 0.02, but we were 37% below state average of those four areas to what our journeyman is offered. So we have attached a pay scale that we would like to bring to the board, and this was done in cooperation with Mr. Ledford, Mr. Smith, of course, as the Director of Operations, but Mr. Ledford as the Director of Maintenance, Human Resources, and Ms. Ellis has all of our supervisors, that what we would like to propose is there will be a split in our pay scale right now, but that will give us an opportunity if we have need to fill those in for other positions, but to go reach out to a grade 28 through 35 and use the same salary structure as what we have present right now with our support scale, and go ahead and get that starting scale to be comparable to what the state is, which would be the starting pay of $16.76 per hour. And they would advance through just like any other job would within our district. That would be a beginning rate. What we did find out when we were looking at this is that although we have 3 different pay scales for the different areas, none of the other school districts have. They have one journeyman scale, and many of our journeymen have multiple licenses. This would allow us more flexibility if the need did occur to be able to move as our needs as a district would occur as well. And that is what I have before you. Any questions?
We're going to put out, are we looking to hire?
We will have to look at basing it on need.
Okay, so we don't have any idea what, are we short?
Potentially right now, we're looking at about 3. But we will look at the need as it is presently, because it's been a couple of years since we've established that need. So we would have to go back to the drawing board and see that that need was still there at this time. But we do need to have a pay scale that's ready.
Right, definitely.
Any other questions?
I'm not real good with charts like this. I don't understand. Over on the left, we have step. And then we have 1 through 28, and then up above, we have 28 through 35.
No problem, no problem. The step that you're seeing from 0 to 28 is our longevity. It's our step increases each year based on your longevity with the district. The grade 28 through 35 is that beginning grade. You stay in that grade for 2 years. You have your starting grade, you get 2 years experience, and then you get upped a grade for 5 grade spans, and then every 4 years, you're eligible to go up a grade. So this would build enough that if we had a young journeyman come in, that we would be able to keep them throughout their career. They could be a career person with us and still have movement on this scale. Any other questions? Thank you.
Entertain a motion?
How does this, I guess I don't really remember what we had proposed before, but it appears that this is a gradual increase, but it looks like it's a starting wage that could attract some applicants. Is that?
Yes, that's our ambition in doing this.
And these numbers, does these include benefits? Or are these just wages?
No, these are straight hour wages.
So if you were to look at the benefit package that we have for LPS,
You can add about
this is
23%.
23%. So this is fairly attractive. I would think that we would not have too much trouble getting qualified applicants with this scale.
Well, it puts us very comparable with the market data.
Yes, the schools and pay scale also did not include the benefits.
Right.
So with similar packages.
You said 23% benefit? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Those are the figures.
And do these others that you looked at, do they have these step increases and these grades?
The outside the metro one, I cannot speak for that, but the school ones do. They have a similar pay structure.
How many hours do we base a full year on, a full 12 months?
261 days, 8 hours, it's right at 1206, I believe, is what it figures out to.
How many days? 281?
261.
261.
The journeyman carries a 261-day contract, at 8 hours a day.
And that came out to what?
I believe it's 1206. I'd have to do the math again. It's 2000. Okay, yeah, it's 2,088 hours in a contract year.
So what's our starting salary now on a grade 28, step 0 for a beginning journeyman?
What is our starting salary right now? 21,000.
With this?
With this?
It's in the 980 range.
Ridiculously
No, what is the 1676 times the 2,088?
I'll pull out my calculator.
Okay, that's all. Everybody get your.
And I'm going, the one time I do not have my phone in my hand. I do apologize for that.
You mean your all-purpose electronic device?
That's it. I think I need to start calling it that.
So a starting brand-new journeyman, step 0, grade 28, would be starting at $34,994.
Okay.
Say that again.
It's right under, it's $6 under 35,000.
I think so.
Okay, move for approval.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Clodfelter?
Yes.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Mr. Sharon?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
Dr. Deegan?
All right, under report of the superintendent, the first item is just the update of the sales tax funds. Since we just had the report from the Bond Oversight Committee, I don't think there's much new in there. If the board doesn't have any questions, I'll move on to item B. Item B is just a really quick update. It's just update on procedures, review of contracts. Met with Miss Kathy Bentley. Just going to institute a small change, just a small procedure. Prior to, just because, and we had an example of it at this board meeting, prior to the board meeting, there were some issues on contracts. So prior to going to the consent agenda to approve any contracts in the future, Ms. Bentley will have received initials from Mr. Wade on all contracts. He's reviewed them. So when we get to the consent agenda, like on a night like tonight, where I didn't get a chance to catch Mr. Wade because he got here just as the meeting was started, we'll just stop real quickly and ask Ms. Bentley if there are any contracts that haven't been reviewed, and we'll move forward. Any that have been reviewed, we'll just pull from the agenda. And that's just procedural on our side. Any questions over that?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
And then item 6C is just a discussion and possible action. Mr. Jester requested we put this on the agenda regarding the Historic Overlay District application. It is attached to the, if you want to look at it again, the board members have all received. I don't know if this is a discussion. We did put action possibly on there. You've received information from Mr. Miller. You've received information from Karen Long. Had a couple board meetings on this. I guess I'm going to go ahead and defer to you, Mr. Jester, to kind of help lead the discussion on it. You and Ms. Clodfelter, both of you, have been working on this committee for the board. And so I really defer to both of you to add any thoughts or comments on what you think related to Ron Stevens Stadium and how this fits in. You're probably the most knowledgeable people in the room right now, on this room, this side of the room.
This side of the room?
Yes.
Go ahead, Carl.
No, go ahead.
Well, we met a couple of times with the committee, the Hole in the Wall Committee, I believe is what they're calling themselves. And they are very proactive in wanting to assist us with this endeavor. However, they are pretty adamant that they want us to apply for the Historic Overlay District. And that's kind of the question. We would welcome any help. I think that the cost estimates are a lot greater than they anticipated, and so that's a potential hurdle. But, of course, what we needed to be aware of was, what we need to do in order to get this facility up to par, where it can be used, and where it can be used safely and also be an asset so that we can possibly use it for more activities than we currently are. There's no immediate danger and there's nothing to keep us from using the facility at this moment. However, you know, it may not be the best reflection of LPS that we are using it at this time. And, you know, one of the things that we had to consider was how is applying for this historic overlay district potentially going to impact future projects? And what are the advantages and disadvantages? And so I asked for other opinions. I've talked to the committee and I've gotten their input. They've been here, they've spoken. So I asked Corey Miller to kind of go over the pluses and minuses, and it's in this report. And so basically, you know, at this point, my impression is that the main positive would be it would help this committee in being able to maybe get more donations. It'd help in fundraising. The other problem, I mean, the problem with it is that it's going to put a larger burden on the district for any other projects and future projects. And in fact, the actual fix that AIP has come up with, you know, it could conceivably not even be approved by the committee. So, you know, I'm all for historic overlay districts. I think they're a wonderful thing for the city. I can't tell you that I believe in this instance it's the best thing for the district and or the community. I just haven't been convinced of that, and that's just my opinion. Carla, I'd like to hear from you.
Well, I mean, I basically agree. I'd really like to go along with the historic overlay, but the way our district is right now, I agree. I just don't think it's in our best interest.
So is it worth looking at the National Register?
Yeah, that's what you mentioned, that, yeah, what's the difference between the
Well,
two?
I believe that it would be more advantageous. You know, some people believe that that's even more egregious as far as, you know, future problems, but, or not future problems, but stipulations, but that's really not the case. It's probably less so. And I guess I'm trying to understand, I mean, the main reason that would be advantageous is there are opportunities out there for us to receive grants and more actual assistance, you know, not just helping private fundraising, but also, you know, get actual grants. And so to me, I mean, I would prefer to see us look into that and attempt that. Well, I think that would benefit the community and the district more.
Well, I know they're here in attendance, but what has that committee responded to that when you?
How would y'all feel about
the two differences?
If we wanted to put it on the National Register? Or look into it.
No, there's Richard.
I've been wanting to find you.
Richard was hiding back there.
What was the question?
What do y'all feel like would be if we decided to look into having it?
You're getting a national registry as opposed to this historic overlay.
Hang on one second. Mr. Wade, they are not on the agenda to, I mean, it's on the agenda for discussion, but not.
The item is on the agenda for discussion, so we can certainly listen to the discussion, but we can't take any action.
Well, there is, it is also possible action.
Okay, then.
So if it's discussion, it doesn't just have to be discussion with us.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, my question is, on April 20th, the board adopted a policy that said members of the public should not be recognized while the board is conducting its official business. I just wanted to make sure this was appropriate according to you and the board president. I didn't put anything on the agenda for public participation, so I wanted to make sure you're comfortable with it in light of our new policy that the board adopted in April.
I wasn't considering that policy when I said what I said, but as long as all the board members are comfortable with it, I don't see, and everybody's here, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't go ahead and proceed.
Okay. I just wanted to ask about the policy. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Now, in answer to your question, you know, I really am not the expert on the National Registry. I really am not. So that's why somebody who has might be a better way to able to address that. Now, I do know that, I have heard that the National Registry is actually obviously national control. Whatever control there is outside of the community. And that's the biggest difference between the overlay district and the National Registry, is that, the overlay district is part of the community. It's a community overlay, and so it's about the community, and it's going to be community members that are going to be looking at whatever you do. But it does, you're right, it does provide some oversight by the community for the facility. And it's just a matter of, and it's not so much that we're trying to, that the community is trying to take that oversight. It's really something you'd be offering to the community, say, look, it's historic structure, let's all talk about whatever we do with it. That's really what all it comes down to. That answer your question?
Little Chapel of Lawton that I'm on their board, and we're on the National Registry, and they do nothing to tell us what to do. And I don't know, Matty Bill, Manette, you're familiar with Matty Bill, whether you've had any dealings with them. We've had nothing. It's not gained us anything, but also they haven't ever told us we can't do anything.
Well, it's a prestige thing.
That is, yeah.
But also you have more leeway with an overlay, a change of zoning than you do in the National Register. The reason they haven't bothered you, Patty, is because you didn't change anything.
Well, and we didn't get any money from them.
And right now, I hate to tell you, there is no money. I have checked into it. Most foundations will not grant money to public institutions. And I spoke to the state preservation, and they're being cut nationally, which means probably there's no national money. So it goes back, you have both advantages. Lenny, can you?
No, I can hear you.
You have more advantage with an overlay because you can change, you have, anything you do, you people know, or Dr. Deegan knows, I'll put it that way, maybe not every board member knows. Before you do anything, you have to have a permit from the city. So anything you do, whether it's on an overlay or just out there, you're going to get a permit. With an overlay, the city is going to be very lenient on what you do with your, whatever permits. I heard Mr. Miller say something about the bathrooms. If you're on an overlay district, you don't have to, you don't have to change the bathrooms all the way.
With ADA, let me just correct that, because this is, with ADA, you always have to provide reasonable accommodation. So, but as long as there's a reasonable accommodation in another location, whatever is reasonable. But you always have to do ADA, reasonable accommodation, whatever that is.
But you wouldn't have to go in.
But some of the other stuff, you're right, absolutely right. And even mentioned some of the other things, some of the other codes that are involved, you can get waived when you're a historic building. There's a lot of benefits there. But they would go with any of those different types of districts. They would come along with, but you never get out of, I just want to clarify, you never get out of ADA.
Right.
But as far as electrical, plumbing, some of those things, if it changes historically, you don't have to do it. And so as far, in my view, you're better off doing it with a zoning change than you would be with a historical. For the prestige, yes. As Mr. Jester commented, yes, most of the work's already been done for you on that history. But you would have to hire a historical architect to do the process. It costs you to get the petition and go through the procedure. And I personally feel that this community is very, very concerned about that stadium. And there's a lot of really sentimental value there, because I hear it every day. We tore down our downtown. What do we have left? So I don't know if I've answered your questions or not. I will tell you, Patty, if you go do something really changing the outside of the little chapel, Shippo will be down here in a heartbeat.
I do have a couple of comments. Rich, I've looked at that ordinance pretty closely, and I can't see anywhere where it says that we can bypass plumbing, electrical.
It's actually in the actual International Building Code.
But it doesn't ever cite that in the ordinance.
Under the existing building code, there is a section that it doesn't specifically say this door doesn't have to be as big. It simply, what it does, it gives the zoning official discretion under some of those codes, like egress.
The International Building Code does that.
The architect mentioned life safety codes, those sort of the things, in order to, it basically gives him discretion. So it doesn't say, your aisle only has to be this wide if it's a historic structure. It simply says that, well, if your aisle is only this wide and it's supposed to be this wide, the building official can give discretion and allow that narrower egress.
Right.
That's really what it's about. So, and even restrooms, I mean, you can leave an unaccessible restroom in that area, and you know, it can not meet current code, but it's fine. It's an existing building. It's an existing structure. But
that's in your
have some other restroom.
Yeah, I understand all that, but what I don't understand is where that states it in the code. Does it state somewhere in that historic overlay that we go by International Building Code?
Okay, the historic overlay is like a zoning overlay.
Right.
City code also says that you have to build per the building, the international building codes.
Right.
And it adopts those international building codes, just that same way the state
Okay,
does.
so it just automatically adopts it?
It's automatically
Okay.
adopted by reference.
So it'd be the same thing that they're going by with the federal registry?
Yeah.
Okay. That clears it up.
I think also one of the benefits may be that on a local level, because it's a zoning, and correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, because it's a zoning, we locally here can change that zoning if we want to back to the zoning that's in now. And then at that time, if that's not working, then you can go to the national. But as an option, local is probably going to be a lot easier to rescind if it's not working for the board. And amend. You can also, that's right, you can amend it because they write, you're involved in writing the code somewhat.
The general rule, the guidelines.
Would it be all right if I asked them the direct question about fundraising? I know that you guys don't want to be involved in fundraising unless we file for the historic overlay. How much fundraising is your group planning to do? I mean, how far are we going to, I mean, we have $3 million worth of work we need to do to Ron Stevens Stadium. We have a wall, that hole, that is estimated to be about $260,000. So,
What we're afraid of is that we're going to get to the part where we sign up for this, we get $150,000 raised, and now all of a sudden the school district has to come up with another $150,000 and we don't have funds. And that's what we're worried about.
When you're talking about $3.1 million, and you're talking about $100,000, we have gotten estimates of the repair on the wall anywhere from $20,000 up to $102,000.
But those estimates don't marry up with what the architect just gave us, though.
Well, I'm talking about contractors here in town, one of which is very reputable, two of them are very reputable. One quoted $63,000, the other one quoted a high of $102,000.
Chris, you understand that we have to have an engineer sign off.
$100,000 is a lot different than raising money for 3.1.
Right.
I don't know hardly anything about the National Registry. If there's big bucks out there for $3.1 million, then that makes a lot of sense. But raising $3.1 million for a stadium in this town now is formidable, to put it mildly.
Right.
I think it's a slam dunk for us to raise $102,000 to fix the hole in the wall. When you get up to 260, I think that's a different story too.
We have to have the architect.
Right.
Well, the problem we have is engineers got to be able to,
We have to do the job.
but engineers have to sign off on this, so that's the problem. We have to have engineering
We
because,
can resolve that by getting contractor and the architect together.
Mr. Wade, state law bidding requirements, 102,000, is that below or above our requirements to get an architect?
Yeah, it's below we would have to have an architect on.
For 102,
For 102.
we have to have it for 60.
I think it used to be 50. I mean, they've changed those numbers. It's been a few years since I looked at it, but it used to be 40 or 50. Was where
Then you didn't have to have an architect.
At the level at which, over which you had to have an architect. But it could be 100. I mean, I'm subject to my going and checking the statutes, so I'll be happy to let you know, to verify that, just exactly what the current amount is, but I'm guessing it's less than $100,000.
Well, and as they pointed out, that drainage problem, as a longtime theater board member, that drainage problem isn't going away.
No.
And it can undermine anything we repair because
It's been there a long time.
well, and it's making it worse and worse and worse. I mean, it's a problem, and that's where the city, it's their drainage.
Let me just briefly explain one contractor quoted a 63 for one way and 102 on the other way. The 63 basically is rebuilding the wall with a good foundation, just brick or stone to stone together on both sides. The 102, they would have cinder blocks, 4-inch cinder blocks in the middle to stabilize it a little better, much better as a matter of fact, but both of them would have good foundations, which we don't have that.
And so basically, that's a cosmetic fix to the hole that we've got. It would,
That's basically the south wall, because we're gonna have to take out probably 120 feet of that wall, because it is leaning out now.
Yeah, it's leaning.
We'll have to plummet, tear it down, plummet, and put a gate in. And contrary to what the architect said, I think we can get approval from the city to put in an iron gate.
As a lead board member, we are, and by the way, we appreciate all from the lead board, we appreciate all the work that's been done on the schools. We put some money into every one of the schools, about 10,000, you guys have done a wonderful job. But as a lead board member, we go around to try to beautify everything. And there's a delicate balance, of course, to tell people that they need to get their property up, as you will know, and be kind about it. But I think that part of the significance is we do need, as we were saying, cosmetic, at least something cosmetic right now, probably done. And that was a part of the initial thrust of us getting together, at least part of it, was, I mean, it's been like that for quite a long time. One of the rumors we had was when they put the tower in, they dug underneath that wall, and it caused the collapse. So it really wasn't an erosion or water thing or anything else from that rumor.
the rumor I heard was lightning.
No, it was the tower. They dug them.
So does anyone think at this point we have enough information to take action?
No, because we need to.
but there's a little more information too that came to light to me earlier today. I talked to Corey, and he spoke to a gentleman that does some stonework by the name of Gene Warner. And he is planning to meet with the engineer, with Gene Warner, to take a look at specifically that south wall, to see if the ideas that Gene Warner has and the engineer can kind of reconcile a different plan that might make that repair less, significantly less than $260,000. Now, I think the other question is do we want to commit to historic overlay division district for what reasons? Do we want to do it because it's good for the community, it's good for the district, or so we can get help raising funds? Or do we just want to make it clear that we intend to repair that hole, one way or another?
That's been my number one question is, we have a group that wants to fix the hole. They've called it the Fix the Hole in the Wall Committee. Why the push that there has to be this historic overlay? Is it because of the breaks you get by when you come to repair it? I don't see the advantages of, if they fundraise and want to fix the hole in the wall and we have this on our side of what it's going to take, why can't the two come together? I don't know, that's why I want a clarification, the significance of why this push for this historic overlay, because National Registry, because you're just registering, I understand those are all over the United States. I don't see what the advantage of, because there's such a push for it. Anytime there is, I have to ask a question, why?
Well, let me start by saying that we have commitments today of about $13,000 toward $102,000. So we're going to start on that, and we haven't tried to raise any money whatsoever other than going to Lee to make a short presentation to get them committed to 10. But I've got several friends asking me all the time, when are you going to get this done?
Yeah, but what does the historic overlay give you?
I think,
Okay.
I think if I could just interrupt you for just a second, is the fact that what they're saying is they don't want to raise the money to fix the wall, and then we decide 2 years down the road, we're going to tear the whole stadium to the ground.
Okay.
But the historic overlay won't keep us from doing that.
We could still do that.
Back in a year or two and say, oh, I'm sorry, you donated $10,000 and it's gone down the drain.
Right.
We don't want to be there.
Right.
Also, as mentioned earlier.
Plus the fact,
I got you.
there's some of us that remember downtown Lawton.
Right.
Right.
And they're they want to preserve something that's original in Lawton.
You guys are too young for that, but some of us do.
Also, that helps, as mentioned earlier, when it's in a historical overlay or a national registry, it does help for fundraising because people think it's it's added.
It's worthwhile.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, the historic overlay wouldn't keep us from being able to tear it down. They could just delay it some.
Well, I mean,
You could still tear the
but if
facility
we
down.
did that, we would be giving them
Well,
pretty much the idea that we're in the business
It's
of
on the
what we're
National
doing.
Registry, that,
Right.
right now, you asked me about Natty Bill, it's wood. If it burned, that's it.
It's gone.
It's gone. That's why they have pictures, they take pictures. So if something burns, they still have a record of it. So, I mean, you can't say one way or the other. I think it's a matter of what Preston is saying. It's a matter of people having confidence
Right. That's the
in
word.
the school board, that if it's on an overlay, that the school board would would appreciate the fact that it is something historical that should be maintained.
Right. I think the board does that. I think we feel very strongly about Ron Stevens Stadium. The concern that's come to me from people is, why do we need another layer of bureaucracy on our building? Why do we need to have to go to the city down the road and say, we're in the historic overlay, so can we replace whatever or do whatever? And that's the concern out in the community that I've heard. Why can't we just take care of our building and get it done? I think because we haven't.
The school district hasn't.
Well, we haven't had any money.
Well, I realize that, but also consider it from the leader point of view, that they've gotten complaints that it's an eyesore.
Right. Oh, I understand all that.
Well, I don't think there's any question that we want to fix the wall.
If we had the money, we'd have done it
Right,
already.
absolutely. And the fundraising thing is fine. I just don't think at this point, and I'll open it to you all, if we have enough information to take any action on this tonight.
I'm not ready to.
Okay.
I had a set way I wanted to be, and I've played. I'm going to have to say that I feel total sincerity in the people that are doing this, and I'm not ready to say no.
Or yes.
Or yes. Okay. Dr. Deegan, your announcements?
So no action. I just have two quick announcements. I believe I gave you a copy, well, 4 quick announcements. One, everybody knows Eisenhower High School, National School of Character. But we got a letter today in the mail identified. If you'll notice, I think everybody got it. Whittier. Well,
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Whittier Elementary also chosen as a National School of Character by character.org. So that's a big deal. We just got that letter in the mail today. I'm not supposed to, if I was sure, even if I was supposed to share it, but I shared it. We had an Eisenhower High School teacher chosen as Red River Chevy Dealers Outstanding Educator, and that is Tina Sorrells. I believe she teaches math at Eisenhower High School, our AP coursework. And just a reminder of graduations, we have graduations on Thursday and 2 on Friday. We have all your garb and issues. And I want to also mention that this year, Miss Ellis will be joining us on stage. It's taken us 3 years to get her up there, so we're finally, Miss Ellis is going to be joining on stage where she should be, helping us welcome.
I believe Eisenhower had the lead award too, with the $20,000.
Yeah.
They wanted the lead award, and now they're giving $20,000 to the Salvation Army because of what the
Oh,
kids
yes,
did.
yes.
So
Very good.
just let us know
That's
that.
cool.
And then finally, so graduation, if any board members have any questions about how to get in, et cetera, make sure you text me or call me right before the ceremony or get me after this. And then finally, the last thing is, attended the Gateway ceremony the other day. The Gateway is an amalgam of our 3 high schools plus 2 other districts that participate. And it was a great ceremony, and I've got to give Mr. Lear, Mr. Manning that oversees the building, what Mr. Manning and Mr. Lear explained to us is most of the students there, I think, graduated on time or ahead of schedule.
Wow.
Yes, very, very impressive. So the Gateway ceremony, some of those students won't be in the full high school ceremony, and so I appreciate them putting on that ceremony for those students and making it special. It was a great ceremony, and I was glad to be there. That's all the announcements I have.
Does anyone need anything removed from the consent?
I have 3 things I want to discuss. First is the change order for the windows over at Eisenhower. This still, the 4902, I don't know what
We
number.
need to pull them first, and then we can...
Yeah, we'll identify to Kathy, we'll pull them.
Pull that one.
So we'll just list what they are.
Okay.
and-
That one, and also I want to talk about the PLE.
Okay.
And then the last thing is, on our encumbrances, we have for Tomlinson on the bid specs, it's $81,000. I'd like to discuss why.
Okay.
That's about $50,000 more than either one of the other 2.
Perfect. And I'd like also Ms. Bentley to add item 7F3A, which is the contract for Crossroads, which there is no contract in the agenda, so there will be,
Oh, okay.
I'm just requesting we pull that. There's nothing to discuss. So did you get all those, Ms. Bentley?
I think so.
Okay. If you need,
So,
Do you want me to move for the balance of the consent agenda?
yes, please.
I second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Clodfelter?
Yes.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Mr. Sharon?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Bentley, just lead us through them one at a time. And
On the first one, on the 7F1A, Atlas General Contractors, the change order for the brake metal and sillets around the windows that was damaged during the demolition. Who did the demolition?
I'm going to have to defer to Mr. Jester, or Mr. Ledford and Mr. Smith.
So why, if the contractor did the demolition, why are we having to pay for the damage that they did to the, that should be their deal?
On the building, what we had was a huge settling problem. That settled over 6 inches between one end of the building all the way to the other. When they went to put that brake metal in there, to keep it straight and level, like you have to put your windows in square, it didn't look good on the bottom. Because you had this much difference in your buildings falling. So they had to add some brake metal to make that look better and to seal it good for the weather.
So you're saying when they tore that down, it caused the part of the building to
No,
shift?
this was like this. It was real hard to tell before it was actually started.
Okay, well, if it was like that beforehand, then shouldn't that have been in their original bid?
I'd have to get with the architect on that.
I mean, I'm
So,
just, you know,
I can get with Corey on that, and we can let you know on that, but there was a huge problem on that site when we finally got started putting in the new windows. So we can get you a better answer on that if you want us to.
well, I mean, it's not like I want to hold anything up. I know it's part of their, you know, we could use that part of the contingency for it. But my, you know, my question is if I come in and I tear this door out and, you know, I bid this price, but I also damage that paneling, I'm responsible for that paneling. I can't say, well, you know, the paneling was old.
No, but the contractor didn't cause the damage.
And some of it was where they had to tear out like real small, like mosaic tile, et cetera, that was right up against the old windows and stuff, and that's almost impossible
Yeah, it doesn't come out.
to clean cut it and then.
Okay,
put
but
it
that's
back,
what they
so.
bid to do.
But, you know, like you said, that could have been in the bid to start with, but I
I mean,
don't
yeah, that's what I'm
think it
saying.
was,
I mean,
so.
a better example would be if I went in and bid a project for $2,500 and then all of a sudden I found out that, whoops, I made a mistake because I didn't do enough research. How's that get shifted back?
But I need to get with Corey on that, and we'll get back with you and let you know.
it or not.
Would you like to, we can table it until the next board meeting if you'd like. It's still within our contingency, we still have 3,000 left in the contingency. Do you foresee any other contingency issues at this point? Of course, that's the old idea of contingency, you don't foresee them. So,
I think that's gonna be it, because they're real close to finishing this whole project.
so it'd be an option, we can definitely table it if you'd like.
No, I don't want to table it.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get it.
It is within, you know, they've done a great job on this project overall, we've only had a couple of
I think they have done a
changeovers.
fantastic
Yeah.
job, but I also just know how tight our money is, you know?
Yes.
You know.
So the good news is the project is still within the original overall budget, so.
Okay.
So you need a motion to approve 7F1A.
7F1.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please. Ms. Claude-Felter?
Yes.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Mr. Sherem?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
And the next one is, and I probably won't have the right number for this one, but you can tell that I have problems with my tablets. I have to print stuff out, and it's very cumbersome. Anyway, okay, on this project for the University of Virginia School Turnaround Program, you know, we've done this for 3 years with this UVA thing with all of our students, and we discussed last year that, you know, we probably had enough information, and we had sent enough teachers and administration to be able to bring it back to our district and share it with everybody else. Wouldn't cost us anymore. So to me, this just kind of seems like we're doing kind of the same thing, we just went around in a circle and have, you know, gotten involved in another project that we're going to be required to do for 3 years. No expenses or anything are covered in this, so all the travel and stuff's going to come to us. It's just a source of concern. I know the grant's going to pay for the original, but we're going to have to pay for the rest.
Yeah, and we have the same concerns. One of the things we've worked in, and I may call on Ms. Hatch and Ms. Frazier here in a moment. One of the things we did, we've rethought how we do the transportation this year especially for the Albuquerque trips. But the second thing is this will replace 4 schools with 3. And that was, the presentation we did last year was concerning the grant, which the grant was not going to be renewed. We didn't ask the McMahon Foundation to renew that, which by the way, I do want to thank the McMahon Foundation for renewing that. But as far as the progress and the results, and as far as the curriculum needs, I do have Ms. Hatch and Ms. Frazier here. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think they could be able to answer questions a little better than I can. It actually, this project is actually less than last year's, so we're replacing 4 with 3.
I understand that part,
Right.
but there's still, we also got less money than we did last year.
Yes.
If you'll just pass this down, that has a little bit of information, and you know what I can ask for whatever is back.
You can have mine.
Thank you.
I'll get this.
And thank you for the
questions, Ms. Clodfelter. Those are good questions, and we just want to let you know kind of where our thoughts are right now, what we've been able to accomplish, and why we'd be asking for a cohort 14. If you look, the front page, I mainly put on there for Ms. Nyworth, just because I've presented to the board several times, but not had a chance to present to her. If you look on the second page, and I've listed the cohort 12 schools, the cohort 13, and the proposed ones for 14. If you look in the gray box there, if we go with cohort 14, at that point, we would have trained 12 of our 25 schools, so almost half of our schools will be trained. We'll be training an additional 76 teachers to implement the work, 7 principals, because the University of Virginia has allowed us to bring on at no additional cost to bring on 3 more assistants from Lawton High School to help move the work forward at the high school level. And we'd also be training an assistant principal at one of the elementaries. But the last part of there is probably, to me, one of the most important parts of what would happen in cohort 14. You know, whenever we first started this with cohort 12, and, you know, they use the term shepherd, and I was the district shepherd, trying to move that work forward with 5 schools, which was great. Last year, whenever we went to cohort 13, we were able to bring Carol McPhail in as a shepherd, and so there were 2 of us doing the work, but trying to figure out how do you make this work happen in all 25 schools, especially the secondary level? That was our biggest concern. And, you know, Rick Owens has embraced everything that happens with LEAD, but he kept saying, with 7 secondary schools, I don't know how I can be an instructional coach and instructional leader and do what I need to do with the principals, because I'm spending most of my time being a manager or putting out fires. And so as a district, we started looking at how do we have shepherds that can hold all schools accountable, to support all schools to do what needs to happen there. And so through cohort 14, they're allowing us to bring on 2 new shepherds. One of them would be Amy Frazier, and the other would be Rick Owens. And so if you look there, right under the gray box, at this point, and I think at the last board meeting, we talked about the restructuring of the district leaders, where Rick would be in charge of the 3 high schools plus Gateway, and Lawton High has already been part of the program, so he would be shepherding them, but whatever he's learning through becoming the shepherd, he would be carrying out with MacArthur and Eisenhower as well. Carol McPhail would take over the shepherding of those 3 schools who were in cohort 12, and then she would also have Eisenhower Middle School to support. And then on the next page, you would see where Amy and I break that down, where we would both have some of the lead schools and non-lead schools, and the 4 of us working together on a weekly basis to have those common expectations, to provide professional development, to calibrate our coaching, and to work with all of our district departments to support the schools and what they need. And so it's not just bringing on 3 more schools, it's changing the format of what we're doing here and how district leaders are supporting the schools. And part of that is Amy and Rick going through that training. When we looked at the east side of town, when we looked at report card grades, when we looked at different data, the only support that was happening on the east side was Mac Middle, and yet all 3 of our elementary schools supporting Mac Middle were 3 of the 4 schools that weren't lead, that were still in the C range of the state report card. So we knew that we needed to support that side of town and the feeder program moving into Mac Middle as well. I've shared with you before, this is probably, in my 31-year career in Lawton Public Schools, this has been it's had the biggest impact on what we do as teachers and as principals, outside of what's happening in the classroom, what's happening in collaboration meetings, what's happening with data analysis, what's happening in the schools. It's changed what we do up here. It's changed our ed services team. It's even changed the way we interview applicants. I mean, it has had a huge impact. And tonight we've spent a lot of time talking about stadiums and about buildings and about rock and mortar, and this is getting down to what is our job? And our job is to create those students that we celebrated at the beginning of the meeting tonight. The other thing that I've included in here just for you to read later, but there are a couple of pages that on the left side it tells you what was it like before LEAD in Lawton Public Schools, and then now what is it like now? How drastically have things changed in 2 years? And so you're right, we put a cohort through and we thought, this is great, we've got to put another cohort through. And I can even remember the McMahon Foundation, asking, will you be coming back to ask us for more money in the future? And no, we didn't want to do that. As we've gone through the work, and that's probably what you're asking too, Ms. Clodfelter, is when will this ever end? At this point, if we have half of our schools and we have 4 people trained as shepherds, and as that division that's happened now, and we can break the schools down, I just feel like it's going to solidify what we're doing. I think it's going to move us forward, and I think it's going to give us a chance to structure and organize things here at the district level so that we can provide that support to all the schools.
Because I think you've done a really good job with all your presentations of that. But we didn't go through this program, this was new to us.
Yes.
But it was sold to us as, and especially with the grant,
Yep.
we were out of no money, okay?
Right.
I mean, we're not into it, and we could have that. And the perception was, I know you didn't know that now, it's easier to speak reflective back, is once we get trained,
That's right.
we'll take all that information, and we can do it here and train everybody here, and we won't have to go back. So I understand her question, because it was sold to us, at least from my own memory, is this is a one-time, the McMahon Foundation's paying for it, and then we're gonna get so trained up and absorbed all this, we're gonna just be able to, and I understand all the pressures and stuff, so it's kind of like, maybe we don't get in the business of promising that if, I don't know what we're gonna be in 3 years, but I think it was well worth it. I think it was something that was very well invested, but I think that's where the clarification comes from, is I remember signing off on, okay, great, go get trained on that, and then we take all of their information, and then we can have our own version here, so that was kind of what was.
And, as a matter of fact, it's interesting, I totally agree with you. In the first time, we kind of equated it to drinking out of a fire hydrant. There was so much that came at us, and it was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, we're going to do this and make it through. And then the second time, definitely bring it on. And just had a conversation with Amy today, and I just said, as I go through this time, my lens will be different, because my lens will be, what will next year look like with a school that's not lead? What will we be doing? And there's no way we can replicate what they do. It's kind of like if you go to a church revival and then you go try to tell your friend what happened. There's just no way that you can replicate that. But going there with the lens of taking a look at every single thing that happens this year, and how would we replicate that with our non-lead schools starting next year? Because you're right, we know what the money situation is, and we know that that this would be an additional blessing if we could do this, but we also just believe so strongly in what's happening that we're going to push for that. I mean, it's
So knowing the difference, knowing what you had before and now, how worth it is it to have this? Can you put it
it's
into
the
words?
most important thing I've ever done in my career, Eric. I'm sorry.
I understand that.
It doesn't.
I think that's the biggest emphasis of all.
Yeah.
Could you all share, I remember in Albuquerque, and I remember February, we are still on the path of believing that we did not need another cohort. Share some of those discussions that I remember from Eric and the team talking about taking on a high school of 1,700 students, which is a different task than, it kind of surprised them. Share some of those thoughts and steps that brought us to this point, because the team was where a couple of the board members, the questions that you all are having are questions we wrestled with as well. But
Absolutely.
How did we get through that, and tell that story, share that information.
And I hope that I'm going to capture what you're thinking here, but, even when we brought Lawton High on, and I've been completely honest with you guys that it was easier at the elementary level, and part of that was you have one principal who goes and they're trained, and they come back and they have a small staff that they touch bases with right there every day, and they can convey that. At the middle school and the high school levels, especially at the high school as large as Lawton High, whenever you just trained the head principal, and then whenever she tries to come back and train the assistant principals, and then they try to go train the teachers, we just found out that it didn't catch hold.
It loses its impact.
It loses its impact. And that's why, in working with UVA, that's why they have said, okay, let's bring on 3 more assistants, let's train more people at the high school level, and let's do that. And that's what we realized, we got our feet wet with the high school, but we need to be able to get this work into the high school, and with Rick, Rick's understanding of that, and Rick leading those high schools going through that, we just think that this will turn the corner for them. And he's already done a lot of talking with the other two high schools. He already has game plans going on there, but we just know that we've scratched the surface, and to listen to what some of the Lawton High teachers said back in September, and to listen to them now is dramatic. I can remember us going in there, and whenever you have that specialized high school math teacher, and you go in there and you're trying to tell them to do things differently than they have, or what's going to happen, and you're going to meet weekly with your team, and you're going to plan together, and you're going to do assessments together, and what are you talking about? That same person is now saying, this is the best thing we've ever done. We've got to keep doing it. And so, when we look at situations like that, but Dr. Tom, help me out with other things that happened in Albuquerque that I didn't cover.
I wasn't for going with another cohort.
Mhm.
I did not want to go, I'm exactly where the questions were. I had to be convinced, but after hearing and looking, just looking at the lead school's growth, the fact, what Pat Henry, what Hugh Bish has done, and sitting and listening to the teachers, and then hearing from the high school and the middle school staff, especially the Lawton High staff was there, I was not at that point. I didn't think we needed the next level, I thought was sustainability. But we're just not there because of the high school dynamic. And looking at the budget, this is less than 1/10 of 1% of our entire budget, but it has impacted our ELL scores dramatically. Our traditionally unperforming groups, the special ed, African-American groups that we've been targeting, our schools have risen because our instruction has risen, so it goes down to the core issue. And the reason I kind of talked to Brenda a little bit, I had the same concerns 3 months ago. I thought, we need to go sustainability. But I wanted to be successful. And so I believe this is an investment that is really just goes down the core of everything we do. I had the same questions you did, Ms. Caulfield.
Any
Thank
other
you,
questions?
Thank you.
They had to convince me too. Thank you, Bob.
So,
I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Call the roll, please. Ms. Clodfelter?
Yes.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Mr. Sharon?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
The next thing is on the encumbrances. If you'll go to page, I always can't find it on here. What's that in there? Where is it at? It's on earlier. I should have kept it pulled up. There we go. All right. Go down to page 5. I think it's 5.
Okay.
I'm like you're speedier than I am. Actually, go over to page, go to page 5. The bottom of page 5, if you'll notice, we're starting right here to talk about these bond funds where we're getting the architect fees for specs and re-roofs for projects. First one's Carriage Hills, $21,868. If we skip Tomlinson and we go on down to Lawton High on page 6, you'll see that it's same thing. Architect fees for specs for re-roof project is $28,972. And then if you jump back up to Tomlinson, all of a sudden, same thing, architect fees for specs for re-roof projects is $81,767. I'm going to need to know why it's $50,000 more. That's a lot of money.
Okay, Mr. Smith, I'll have to rely on you.
Well, I would need to check specifically with Corey on that. Of course, we've had some roofing projects that have been done in the past, and so whatever work they've done on those that has helped, specifically with getting Lawton High's done. Tomlinson's roof is a lot different than Mac Middle's roof, so I don't know if
But the timeline to do the work on it's not any different.
Yeah.
Is it possible, Mr. Smith, that Tomlinson is a brand-new project, Lawton High is a continuation of an old project, so therefore it wasn't as much to do? Lawton High was originally spec'd out for the entire roof, but the district only did half of it at one point. So I'm wondering, and that's my assumption going in, that the Lawton High was basically updating existing plans where Tomlinson was completing from scratch. That's my understanding.
But also Tomlinson's not as old as Lawton High, and nor as big.
Well, remember, we're only doing half of Lawton High's roof.
Lawton High's
We're not
only
doing the
half.
We're not doing the whole roof of Lawton High. Half of it was done several years ago. They did do the specs for the whole building at one time, and that is my assumption too, is that we've had past projects that we did the architectural work for to a certain point, got it completed. Now we're going back to finish it. we have those specs already drawn up. That's my assumption, but I'll have to speak with Corey. Now, like I said, the difference in sizes of what, I think Thomason's going to be square footage wise more than what Lawton High is going to be for finishing it up.
Could be, but I'm still gonna have to see something, I'm gonna have clarification, that's just.
Can you email me something that I can forward on
Sure.
to Ms. Cloudfelter and the board members?
With Corey first thing in the morning.
Because I think that's my,
But it could be that they've done partial project on some of this other stuff, and we're just seeing this balance.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at it across this, I mean, it looks like it's the exact same thing, and $50,000 difference.
I think it's a good question. And again, I think it's, they had to update plans that we had already paid for in the past. And then on Tomlinson, starting from scratch. But Mr. Smith, if you'll get me something, I will share it with Ms. Cloudfelter and the rest of the board members. I think it's a good question.
Table this?
Well, it is an encumbrance from the contract approved last board meeting, so at this point, I don't think we can change it. What we can do is get him more information.
Oh, okay.
Because the contract was on the last board meeting.
But yeah, but the prices were on the last board meeting, we just approved them to go and get specs and quotes, we didn't.
Let me look real quick. That's
Yeah.
the handy part of the e-meeting.
We just told them to go forward.
Is that 50, May 1st?
Yes.
Okay. Fencing replacement, architects roofing projects. Let me pull up the, I'm beginning to like this e-meeting thing a lot.
When I get a tablet that works where I can actually do it off my phone, I'll be happy. Yeah.
Okay.
Just frustration overwhelmed me. Oh, they got it. He has to fix my phone. Yeah, hopefully it does. I took it back. I took the retail mode off. We're talking about my tablet that I bought.
He's looking at that.
It lists in the contract on page 16, $81,767 for Tomlinson, $21,868 for Carriage Hills, and $28,972 for a portion of
We
Lawton
approved
High.
that last time.
Yeah. Is that what was in this agenda?
Yes, it was in, that's what was approved last meeting.
Okay.
Well, somehow I missed it.
And that's what.
But still, I'd like clarification on why.
We will get that to you, so, right away.
Crossroads. That's your.
Nothing.
Of course, there's nothing to consider.
Okay, you pulled them. Okay. Are we going to have a contract come to us pretty shortly on that?
We're working hard on it.
She's trying.
Does that wrap up the consent agenda?
That wraps up the consent agenda, I think.
I'm loving the e-meeting. Well, it was nice to be able to pull that right up.
Yeah, 'cause I don't even remember.
We need an executive session.
We
Move for
do.
executive session.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Who made the motion?
Can I get some water?
Just some.
Ms. Nywer?
Oh, thank God.
Yes.
Second. Kent?
I seconded. Who?
You made the motion.
You made the motion.
I said that, yes.
Okay, Ms. Clodfelter?
Yes.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Mr. Sharon?
Whatever.
Dr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
If everybody